Good evening. I remember taking up microeconomic theory, and we happened to understand in one of my previous videos where we happened to cover on what microeconomics is. So, kind of recollecting what we understood for microeconomics, Ragnar Frisk was the one who happened to give this term micro and macro. So, he was the one who coined it. And then microeconomics means a study of an individual, it is a study of a small unit. It comes from a Greek word micros, meaning small. And we also understood how a small unit is it moves from from a single unit to a narrowly defined group. So moving from a single to a narrowly defined group, and microeconomics is something which concerns itself with the allocation of resources. So this is what we covered under the microeconomics, where it also speaks about the efficiency, technical and economic efficiency in the utilization of resources. Now moving ahead from it, under microeconomic theory, we get to see that we talk about product pricing, factor pricing, and it covers the theory of economic welfare. So these are the three branches that fall under microeconomic theory. Product pricing, just because if we are talking about demand and supply, this demand and supply together is going to help us to fix the price. So when it comes to the product that is getting produced by the factors of production, that is the land, labor, capital, and entrepreneur, that production that is taking place, that production has to be sold in the market, and it is going to get sold at a price. So that price fixation is done on the basis of where there is a demand and supply meeting each other, an equilibrium getting formed, and at that equilibrium point, the equilibrium price gets fixed. So that is what is termed as the product pricing being done. So product pricing done on the basis of demand and supply. So what you get to see here is that under product pricing, it covers the theory of demand as well as the theory of price supply. Theory of supply also called as theory of production and cost. So this also gets covered. Now further, once the product price has been fixed on the basis of demand and supply, the factor of production who has helped in the production of that commodity or good and services, even they have to be paid a price. So how their prices are going to get fixed, how the factor pricing is going to be done, that falls under the theory of distribution. So theory of distribution under microeconomics refers to how you are going to reward all those factors, those who have helped in the production process. And as I said, we take four factors of production. So labor, the labor getting used, wages that has to be paid to the labor, land that has been put to use, the rent that is going to go to the land, the interest that is going to accrue to the money that you are making use of. Fine. So let's say you have borrowed the money, the interest that you are going to pay on it, and the profits that are going to finally go to the entrepreneur once these factors of production have been paid for. So land gets the rent, labor gets the wages, the capital use gets the interest, and the remaining part, whatever the residual is left after paying the factors of production, that will be taken up by the entrepreneur. So besides studying about product pricing, which is based on demand and supply theory, we also talk about the factor pricing. And then in relation to it, we talk about the economic welfare too. Since whatever goods and services are getting produced, it's going to get consumed by the people who are living in a society. So we cannot ignore the welfare part of it. So whether that commodity, produced commodity, is adding to the satisfaction and happiness of that person, that gets studied under the theory of economic welfare. So goods and services getting produced to see that it enhances the welfare of the people. There are certain importance that are attached to microeconomics. It helps us to understand the working of the free enterprise economy. Free enterprise economy means the capitalist economy. Just because if you have to work on the principles of how to produce, and for whom to produce, and that also fixing the prices on the basis of demand and supply. So you look out for the capitalist structure existing, a free enterprise economy existing, where all these three, production, allocation, and efficiency in the use of resources, will be taking place under this ecosystem. So the product pricing and the factor pricing, it automatically, just because we are saying that the factor pricing is based on the demand and supply of labor, it is based on the demand and supply of capital, demand and supply of land. So just because we are talking about the demand and supply helping in the fixing of the prices of the factors, as well as the same demand and supply helping us to fix the prices of the product. Therefore, it automatically refers to that no artificial fixation of the price is being done, no superficial price fixation is being done through interference of the government, and this is taking place under a free market economy. So when we study microeconomics, because the person is going to undertake the production activity only for the profit purpose. So since an individual is interested to produce to earn some profit, so it automatically refers to that the entire production activity or the hiring of the factors is being done under the free enterprise economy. So microeconomics helps us to understand the working of the free enterprise economy. It also helps us to understand the interdependence between the factor and the commodity prices. This diagram we'll take up in the next slide. And then third is, it also helps us to formulate correct price policies in relation to the individual economic unit. But obviously, since an individual is there, a firm is there for earning profit, but they will be formulating or designing some policies. And to have correct policy being designed, the microeconomics is going to help in the designing of the correct price policy. Limitation. If I talk about the limitation, we get to have a look at the limitation in the form of laissez-faire. Laissez-faire economy means that there is no government interference. Fine. So it means that the capitalist structure is existing, and this becomes a limitation of the microeconomics, that there is no government intervention. Then whatever behavior or character is there at the total level, at the totality level, that is at the macro level, it is not necessary that we can generalize the same for the individual also. So it's like we end up saying what is good for a economy not necessarily may be good for an individual, or vice versa, what is good for an individual may not hold good for the economy. For example, let's say an individual saving the entire income and spending less on consumption. So that saving done by one individual may be good for that individual. But if everybody starts saving and no one indulges in consumption, then it will be bad for the economy at the aggregate level. So that would be not resulting in the production taking place if the demand is going to be less, but obviously the supply will also be cut down by the producer. So if the saving done by one does not hold good for the entire economy, the saving rising, same way what is good for the economy at the macro level may not hold good for the person at the micro level. Fine. So this is what becomes one of the limitation. It is also based on unrealistic assumption of full employment in the economy. Just because when we talk about microeconomics, we assume that there is a full employment in the economy, and the individual is simply concerned with the allocation of the resources. So how that limited resource has to be put to use, that is the only thing which is up on the mind of an individual. So therefore, this assumption of full employment of resources in the economy becomes a unrealistic assumption, just because you get to see that there is either underutilization or at times there is overutilization of resources in the economy. Talking about the interdependence that is depicted under microeconomics, the interdependence between the commodity and the factor prices. If we have a look at this relationship between the two, let's take it in the form of a diagram here. Here you get to see that there is a factor market and a product market. Physically, product market do get to exist. You get to see also when you go to the market to make any kind of purchase. Let's say whether you go to a sabzi mandi or to a polished area in the mall, that is a product market for you. Fine. So product market where demand and supply is working in relation to the goods and services. Factor market refers to the factors of production offering their services where they go for employment, right? So physically you will not come across any kind of factor market, though these days you do have online websites or kind of hiring the people, putting up their advertisements for the hiring of the people, but then as a physical form you will hardly come across some kind of market where you go and you supply your services at one particular point. So it's a kind of that at different points you will come across that you are getting hired for your services. So no one particular location is there. Factor market again, where the factors of production they are interested to offer their services so that they get hired and in return they get their rewards. And then you have the firms and the consumers, right? So these are the actors that are there in the economy, the consumer and the firm. So what happens here is the consumer is going to place a demand for the goods and services. So the consumer is asking for the goods and services in the product market. Who is going to supply and fulfill that demand for the goods and services? The firms are going to produce those goods and services. So firms will be the ones who will be the supplier of that goods and services. So firm supplying the goods and services in the product market, and it is the consumer who is going to buy it. To buy those goods and services, the consumer requires income or money. And how to get that income or money? You offer, the consumer is going to offer their resources, productive resources means is going to offer whatever skills they have picked up or whatever art they have learned in the entire period, they will offer themselves for the job. So they go to the factor market looking out or hunting for a job. And who's going to hire them? The firms are going to hire them for their productive activity. These firms will utilize these productive resources getting offered by the consumers, and they will be engaged in the production of these goods and services. They'll be utilized for producing these goods and services, which is going to finally get sold in the product market. So hiring of the people who are ready to work for them is done by the firm, which in returns gives money to the consumer. When the firm is going to pay to the consumers who are offering their productive resources, they'll be incurring an expenditure. Fine. So naturally, it will become a cost for the firm which is hiring these consumers in the form of labor, or a consumer is giving his or her land on rent, or is kind of lending the money, and in return they'll be getting a interest. So the firm who is utilizing their services will be incurring a expenditure, and whatever is expenditure for the firm will become the income for the receiver. So the income for the receiver is the consumer will be getting paid, and that payment will be in the form of income. Now what the consumer is going to do with the income? The consumer will be spending that income on the produced goods and services. So consumption expenditure is going to be done by the consumer. They will spend the money on consumption. Whatever money they spent on consumption will become the revenue for the firm. So this is how it's going to work. What is consumption expenditure for the consumer becomes the income for the firm, and that is termed as revenue of firm. So that's how the commodity and the factor market is interdependent, and this interdependency is shown under the study of microeconomics. Now, since under modern approach, when we talk about economics, we take it as micro and macro. So micro and macro, these two sub-classifications you get to see when you are talking about the modern approach to economics. Now moving to macroeconomics, the term macro was first used by Ragnar Frisk, as what obvious, but the one who spoke about the study of aggregates is something that you get to see under the work done by Lord J.M. Keynes. Right? So he wrote a book, A General Theory of Employment, Interest and Money in 1936, and this in this work of his, you come across the study of macroeconomics. So macro is something which is not going to deal with an individual. It is going to talk about the sum total of the individual units. So aggregate means total, right? So here we are not interested to talk about an individual income. We will say national income. Not individual saving, but total saving. Not individual consumption, but total consumption. So everything is taking place at a whole level, fine. At the aggregate means at the macro level, the entire thing is being done in totality. We are going to give a picture. Now, what is the importance of it? Why do we study something at the aggregate level? Because it helps in understanding the nature of the economy. It also helps in designing suitable economic policies. So we try to understand by making a study at the macro level, what kind of economy is it, right? What is the nature of the economy? Is it a agrarian economy, or is it a service-based economy? You get to understand only when you take the picture at a macro level. So you understand which area or which sector of the economy is making a major contribution. So usually we classify the economy into three sectors. Fine. So it is the primary sector, secondary, and the tertiary sector. So you get to understand the nature of the economy to term whether an economy is an agrarian economy or a service or a manufacturing based economy when you get a picture at the whole level. Then suitable economic policies can be designed, just because, let's say, if the government has to make some program for generating employment, they have to come up with some policy and program related to employment generation. They will be, but obviously talking about the individuals, and when the individuals will be aggregated all together, they will be taking a sum total, then only they'll be able to understand how many people are unemployed in the economy. So whether it is poverty or whether it's unemployment, these suitable economic policies can be designed only when you have a understanding of the individual, but then you move by taking a sum total of all the individuals that are there in the economy. Limitations of it. What is the limitation of macroeconomics? First limitation is fallacy of composition, right? So fallacy of composition means, like, let's say that the economy is doing well at the national level or at the macro level. So economy doing well at the macro level means, let's say the national income of the country is rising, right? A good income is being shown. That doesn't necessarily mean that the individual is also getting benefited out of it. It can be so that the major part of the national income is being taken by only few people of the economy. So only few percentage of the people, they enjoy a good national income, but then the remaining ones, their lot remains the same. So it is not only that aggregate indicators are going to be a true picture of what is going on in the economy. No, we cannot take it so. A rising national income, as I said, may not necessarily be doing good to the person who is at the lower level. Fine. So it may be just because the rewards that are coming in the form of rising national income may not be getting equally distributed among the rich and the poor. So only few may be pocketing the money, the higher income or the higher national income, and the other remaining ones may be remaining continue to remain poor. So that is what is termed as fallacy of composition. So composition, you are talking something about some at the total level. You are aggregating something and you are trying to say that whatever picture is you are getting, the macro picture or the bigger picture you are getting, it means that the economy is moving in that direction only. No, not necessary. Then comes, there are statistical and conceptual difficulties to it. It is not easy to measure, fine. There are certain problems when it comes to the measuring of the developments that are taking place in the economy. Statistical difficulty will be in terms of that you have to kind of aggregate the data. There are times when the data is not sufficient. The information collected from an individual is misleading. Wrong information is given by the individuals at time. Fine. So let's say the national sample survey which is conducted after, or census which is done after every 10 years, not necessary that the individual is parting with the right information. So that can also create a problem when it comes to making use of statistics. After all, statistics is simply a tool. If the information is not correct, then statistics cannot do wonders to anything. So the information collection and the person who is collecting the information, whether that person is capable enough to collect the data or not. So it is not necessary that you come across good people who may be honestly collecting the data, and the same honesty may not be lying on the part of the person who is imparting the information, who is giving the information. And moreover, wrong statistical tools may be getting used. The person may not be conversant in the use of the statistics and may end up projecting or giving a wrong information. There can be times when the fudging of the data is also done and wrong information is arrived at. Conceptual difficulties are also there. The concept is not properly defined, and once the conceptual problem is there, when the clarity is not there in the concept, but obviously the measurement will also not make sense. So these are the difficulties that arise under macroeconomics. So with this, we end up covering the way the modern approach to economics is undertaken, and thank you.